We'd like to mention at the beginning of the show that this episode contains discussion of sex work and sex workers and Johns. So if that's something that may trigger you, please be warned.
Hi, I'm Parker.
And I'm Mike. And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast.
Welcome to our new podcast on the art of the graphic novel. Mike is the author of 10 books and produced Comics TV, which was a weekly TV show on comics for 7 years back in the 90s.
Back in the olden days. Together, we produced Northwest Brew Talk about the beer industry in the Northwest for 2 years. Now we're back, and this show is all about graphic novels. Hey, Parker, how's it going?
Going good. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. So, our last episode, we did Paying For It by Chester Brown, a comic strip memoir about being a John. And we had a little feedback, so we are bringing on some special guests today to do like a part 2 on that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yes.
Having some guest speakers. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Michael. And I'm Piet.
All right. Michael and Piet.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And you both have read the book since the episode. So why don't we start with what you thought of his writing and his comic style and stuff before we get into, the rest of it.
The meat.
I'm pretty new to graphic novels. So I'm not really familiar a lot with drawing and stuff, but I mean, I felt like the drawing was itself pretty clear. It was pretty concise and fast. And
Mhm.
I mean, there wasn't a lot to it. Most of it took place in a bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was fine. It reminded me kind of older style cartoons. I think the more the stuff that I watched or read was more of manga in the past.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, which is always seems a little bit more different than this. Is very consistent and looks a lot like Chester Brown. So
Yeah.
that was very realistic looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I read a lot of manga too, especially one for people who haven't read it, Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm into old school. I guess that one's post-apocalyptic, but that's my favorite things. But yeah, manga, I have to agree with Michael, has a lot more stuff going on. And this one was actually an easy read. I actually read it last night just to be able to have these conversations and be more in depth and just come in kind of with no information ahead of time. So
Yeah, no, you're right. Like the Heartstopper series that we read, it's a manga style where like there's action like in their eyes and like there's like words conveying like bump, and things like that his style is very different. It is more like an old school kind of simple,
Like
pain by
newspaper
pain. Exactly.
kind of comic
Exactly.
strip.
Right.
But that was something that we said in the first previous episode too. It's very clean. It's
Mhm.
like his previous collaborators who you read in there, Seth and Joe Matt. They were all good friends.
Mhm.
And Seth actually in some of his work, he's made like rubber stamps of certain looks, so he can just stamp like his face like turned a certain way, so he doesn't have to keep drawing the same thing.
Oh.
And then it's just that's the look. So because it's more about the words than what he's
For him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah. So okay. So that was about about the book itself. Now, what did you both think of the storyline? I mean, did you find it? What do you think of somebody, detailing their? I mean, doesn't always. You thought that he did keep a diary. Does he just keep a diary of everything, or do you think that he had plans for this? Like he knew that maybe down the road he'd do something.
I hadn't read any of his other work, so I
Right.
have no idea how that was. If he does take stuff from his real life and use it,
Mhm.
so maybe he did keep a journal and, make sure that he took lots of detail so that he could write about it later. I didn't really get the feeling that is the reason why he pursued,
right.
Having sex with sex workers. So, but, if that's the only thing interesting going on in your life, then maybe you do keep a diary of it or whatever. I don't know. I never really thought about it.
Well, I mean, it started from 96 to 2011 is where he mentions the most recent thing in the appendix. So, I mean, I imagine you could probably remember a lot of that stuff, but maybe he also said, I think, that he created some people. Maybe I'm read that wrong in the appendix.
Or he blended a couple people.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
So he took some liberties. It was obviously not like a perfect word for word interaction. But I mean, when you're having sex with somebody for every 3 weeks, like you're probably gonna remember somewhat some of the things. I mean,
exactly.
Especially when it's something that's not a normal, like considered normal everyday experiences with sex. It's like something that society says is a no-no.
Nothing. I was just gonna say it's like having a coffee. Like, do you remember having light roast or dark roast versus something a little bit more carnal like sex? I think might be a little easier to remember.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, if you're going
coffee, sex, right?
I mean, if you're having coffee every day, at some point you're not going to remember what you ordered.
But
but he's having sex.
But
every
you'll
day.
remember
if you
coffee
every 3 weeks.
Exactly, and
you might be more exactly.
Yes. But with you're having a different coffee every 3 weeks. Are you
not always?
Not always. No, I mean, there's several people he said he saw a few times, but not always.
And one thing we didn't mention on the previous episode was how he eventually comes back around to monogamy, and he ends up becoming
essentially, yes,
monogamous with one woman who actually is monogamous with him.
No.
Yes.
Is that what she said? I can't remember.
That's what it said.
That's what he said?
Yeah, he said that she became, but he paid her, and he wanted to know, he paid her to have sex. He never says that they date or anything, that he just pays her.
Well, no, he
sex.
said that he assumes that she wouldn't have sex with him if he wasn't paying her.
Right. But she's monogamous with him, so.
He also indicated, I don't know if this was in an interview that I watched with him.
Or in the book, right.
In the book, but he had indicated that she had left sex work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, he did say that in there, that. But he said that, if she decided to go back and have other men pay her for sex, then that would be, he couldn't stop her. Yeah, because there's nothing he could do about it. But it's interesting his take on how he decides that he doesn't want to become romantically involved with anyone because of all the entanglements and mental anguish that he would go through and everything, where it's easier just to have this one-on-one relationship just whenever you want it. What do you think of that?
I can't really imagine having sex with one person, even if you're paying for it, not having some kind of romantic feelings about that person.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not everybody, so maybe that's true. But I think it's hard a lot of times to divorce yourself from romantic feelings,
especially when that's the way we're raised in society.
Yeah.
That's the way they were raised. Now, if his family had been open and about sex and not connecting sex with romance, and that's the way he was raised, then I think the connection would be a little different. Like, obviously everybody thinks differently, and I feel like it would take a lot of work to completely disconnect that, unless you were living on a commune or something where that was everybody's thing. Like, the sex was separate from the romance. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I also think he might not be
neurotypical. Yeah, so I said that too.
Might be something that's just a different way of processing things than other people do.
Absolutely. I definitely got that feel as well.
And he defines, I think, romantic love usually in the context of sex. Like, you need sex to have this binary emotional thing where the sex and the emotions come together, whereas there are people in society that are asexual and don't necessarily need that physical touch to feel that. So I feel like maybe some of that definition is, it's biased, right, from his heteronormative perspective anyway. But it's biased towards sex being a necessary factor for romantic love to be even defined as that.
But I'm pretty sure that he's not asexual because, well,
yes, sex.
Yeah, and he's also has the ability to have romantic feelings because he's expressed that he's had romantic feelings with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he doesn't ever have romantic feelings.
Right.
And maybe that's something that developed over time. Maybe just because he was having non-romantic sex all the time. But it just seems to me like it's something that he is. It's normal for him to be romantically involved with people originally, and then came to non-romance and sex. And for me, I just don't see how that it's something that's harder to understand, I should say, than not than being able to divorce those pieces.
Right. What are you looking for, Parker?
I'm trying to find the thing about. I don't remember that he said that him and Denise was monogamous with him. I don't remember reading that. Does everybody else remember that?
I thought it was. Wasn't it in the
I know
end of the
he said
cartoon?
he was. That's why I thought it was in the appendices. But.
No, I thought it was in the cartoon near the end of it itself.
Yeah, I think it is because they talked about it in the interview being like a spoiler.
Oh yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's in the.
Well, this is an old book, so we're not.
Yeah, this
unless you have.
And that was something that was hard too, is trying to remember. Like, I feel like we've had so much, and we talked about this off mic, that there's so much social change that's happened since 2011 that trying to put yourself back in that 2011 brain, right, is not the easiest thing when trying to kind of take your biases out of it a little bit. I think.
Do either of you think? Do you, especially reading through the appendices and stuff, do you buy into any of his stuff? Obviously, everything he wrote in the comic and you can tell by some of the stuff in his appendices are based on his biases, and he's trying to justify, being a John and that it should be legal or not illegal. Do you buy any of that like the women, that's in their body, they should do what they want, any of that stuff that he had written?
I mean, basically, I think that he has thought about it a lot because that's something that he does. He is a John, and he wants to justify that. When you do something, no matter what it is, you want to make sure you justify it to yourself. That's just kind of something
human nature.
It's you don't want to have I can't think of the right word, but you don't want to have a mindset that's juxtaposed to how you feel morally. And you can tell that he's really thought about all of his points in the appendices. He's like, oh, well, this is compared to this and this is compared to that. And I don't think that the comparisons are good. Like, I personally don't think that you can compare sex work with homosexuality.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We didn't discuss that. I know.
We discussed it off mic, and then we
forgot
recorded
about it.
And it was like, there were so many other things like water falling out of my mouth.
But I think in 2011, that would have been a really good argument, to be perfectly honest, just because homosexuality and sex work probably were linked a lot more than they are now. And homosexuality is a lot more accepted in a lot of the country than it is and then it was back then. I mean, there's just been a change in the American people's mindset, I guess. But I don't think it's a very valid argument currently. And it probably wasn't that strong of an argument back then. You know what I mean? I see people do this a lot with other things, and they think it's really great, but you really have to have something that's a little bit closer to the same thing when you're making an argument for something than he's doing.
Well, because when people discuss homosexuality, especially people who aren't queer, then they think that it's all about sex. So that's, I think, how they relate it to sex work is because it's all about sex. So when we talk about homosexuality, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about sex. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When it's not.
Yeah. And he's obviously not homosexual. So.
Right.
So he's So he doesn't really have quite the grasp
Right.
that he should before he
And
gets
though
started.
that, like, in itself might be more complex to kind of parse out, the whole, like, he gave the counter argument there with that little blonde guy or whatever saying, well, it's a born thing and whatever, like, that homosexuality is something that is genetic, essentially. And there was a study I was going to try to bring up from 23andMe that they showed a couple genes that might be linked, but it's a very weak evidence that there's a lot of genetic evidence for homosexuality, but that doesn't discount environment and
Other variables.
And other variables like there is gene environment interactions, I think, that are more important than just genetics. So you can't just cleave it out of the genome either. I think it's a very what people call polygenic traits, where it's probably more genes involved than just one single gene. And I was going to segue, from that
okay.
into his argument on drug use.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Addiction.
Yeah, that's a more concrete one that you can actually measure very well. That points that his perspective on it being a choice, like addiction's a choice, is very. I don't know where he gets his information from. He sounded
the one fucking thing that he quotes.
So one
Some
stupid thing that said that on a cellular, that it doesn't change on a cellular level, addiction, but clearly there's a lot of evidence just from histopathology. So looking at these different sections of the brain that show there are differences even in mouse models of the hippocampus and other areas of the brain change from drug use. So how can you make the argument that it's absolutely choice? I think that's what he was saying there. And so the circumstances that some of these sex workers, that the argument that they'll go back into this kind of business, I guess, for lack of a better term, is fueled just by choice if it's all drug related to get the money for the drugs. I mean, there is choice, right? But I think at a certain point, I just feel like 2011 was a different time, maybe, or he just didn't get the memo. But there's a lot more biology involved in that. And I think he completely discounted it because it's so short too. Whatever he showed is false, because anything that changes your physiology or your cell biology is considered a drug anyway. But
well, and he also, when he was looking at the arguments, right, he gave counter arguments, but only ones that he could possibly discount with his argument, right? So he didn't really explore all the possibilities for his answer or to answering the thing that he's trying to address. He just said, "Oh, this feminist said this," and then had his counterpoint ready,
right?
And instead of really exploring all the possibilities, there's so much other stuff that people could counter his stuff with. So obviously, I haven't done any
he was
research
trying to
on
justify
it, but he's
it.
he's just thought about it. I don't think that he would do very well in an actual debate if he didn't have prepared remarks. Everything is very prepared that he has. Everything is in its dents, and the if you can't make your argument inside of your actual comic, I don't feel like it really should be inside of the book itself. Like, the appendices was too big.
Very big.
Too like, it was not entertaining at all.
Right.
And it's not a actual, like, it's not a research piece. It's not like
it tried to be a minor research piece.
Exactly. And it didn't work. Right. I'm guessing that he got a lot of comment on what he had put out there, and he was just trying to make sure that he could justify it so it could still work later.
Oh, and you guys were right. He does say that he's been monogamous with Denise for 6 years, and she's been monogamous with me for several years now, but there's no commitment. She doesn't own me, because that's what commitment is. It's ownership.
Yes.
Well, he owns her. He pays.
Paying somebody is not owning them. Oh my God.
If I paid for a book, I'd own it.
You'd own the book. He owns the sex that he has.
For that time. Now, he doesn't discuss how long he has sex with her, so I wonder if she gives him a discount, or if she gets, she gives him a couple hours for the same rate she would have charged before for 30 minutes.
I'm gonna guess no.
No, it's like, look, based on his appearance.
I mean, based on he said that he doesn't believe that she would have sex with him.
Right.
So why would she give him a discount? And she's also not in sex work anymore. So,
but why would she? So he may not be her sole income then. She may be out of it, and she's just
working at Amazon. Or
exactly,
something.
and
maybe she's working at a purse store.
And so he just pays her every 3 weeks or whatever to have sex, and that's it. And they come over, they have sex, and
it sounds like from what he said that she finds him as an entertaining or fascinating person. Like like they're friends, and then he pays her, the whatever her rate is, and then they go and have sex, and then they're done. Like, I don't know.
So I wonder if she sees him out, or at least back then, if she saw him outside of having sex.
It sounded like
they were friends,
me, like they were friends.
Yeah.
Like what is it, Su Yin?
Oh yeah, the other one.
Like I mean, maybe it's a similar friendship type thing. It seems like he has lots of friends. People like him for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get it. I would not want to be friends with him.
Somebody who has those values, I couldn't see being friends.
Well,
with
you
him.
were talking about how he had his thoughts planned out and everything, and even when you read the appendix, how Seth says, "Yeah, I don't know if I would have been exactly like that. I think I would have had more of an argument, But Chester only wrote his side, which seemed much more forceful than Seth was just like, well, I said this and I said this.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that when you're talking about a memoir or you're talking about your own personal art, then you're going to write your side of it. Like you can't fault him for that.
Right.
But I guess I think it was nice that he said, at least, that he gave everybody an opportunity to make comment on it. I don't think that he gave everybody, obviously, because
he couldn't.
Because he doesn't know the names of the people that he had sex with.
The real names.
Or that they were in business or anything.
Right.
I mean, he knew nothing about them except that he had sex with them.
Right.
So
he probably should have put out an ad in like those papers and been like, "I'm writing a story about sex workers. If you've had sex with this man,
yes,
please
a very
contact."
distinctive looking person.
Yeah, I'm sure they remember.
What is your opinion of the review site?
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, everything is reviewed these days, so I'm.
But it isn't these days. Remember, this is pre-2011.
Yeah, but Amazon was around
I think
still.
that there was. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think that there was.
Amazon was around.
But that being said, you're not rating. Well, you know what? I'm thinking like TaskRabbit, Lyft. We all rate humans on some level about their customer service. I mean, we send out when you have an interaction with somebody at your bank or at a restaurant, you review the server, you review the teller, you review like all those things you do review. So because it's sex and it seems personal, I don't think that is. I mean, I don't see the difference there. But that being said, when he asked the sex worker if she knew about it, and she said no. And then when he asked about her comfort level with that, and she wasn't happy about it, that would be that point at which I'd be like, oh, maybe I should ask other people, get other people's opinions about it. And then go,
instead of going on and making a nice review about the person that just said that she doesn't like the review site.
Exactly. And find out if other people, and kind of understand, and then work towards not actually using that site anymore. If more people that you interact with are not interested or don't like that people are being reviewed on their site, and maybe it's also because there's a legality thing to that particular situation. So I mean, obviously, getting served at a restaurant, it's illegal and allowed. So you're more likely to. It's not as weird to review that, but I don't know.
Right.
To me, I don't think that's weird.
But see, I feel like it was weird to me based solely on what was being written about them. You know, like that they look young or whatever. Like it wasn't about their customer service necessarily.
Part of it was.
Certainly part of it was, but
Like
for
how
the
good
most
the
part, it
service
was
was.
like how attractive they were and like the specific things they were willing to do.
Yes,
and that was
the service.
but that was bothersome to me because every single interaction with them is not like she's not going to necessarily have what bareback blowjob. She's not necessarily going to be willing to do a bareback blowjob with everybody, but if he went on the site and that's specifically why he's going to her,
Well, at that point, then she can say no. She's not going to give a bareback.
and then she gets her
blowjob.
bareback,
Then she
And
gets
then-
beaten.
and then she gets her ass kicked.
Maybe.
I mean,
That was the other thing.
I mean,
like, do you know
that
anything
one's-
about sex work in that? I like he was pretty certain that most Johns are just like him, and they're not going to be abusive, and they're not going to be.
I don't know any statistics.
Yeah,
about,
see, I don't know that either. I wish I did.
Assaults and in sex work. I would imagine it's probably higher, just because
It's illegal and it can't be reported.
Exactly. Yeah. But I don't know any statistics, but I mean, some people review things for Amazon, a product or a company, and they have nothing to do with the actual company. You know what I mean? Like you've read like ridiculous reviews on Amazon. They're just funny because the person is not actually talking about anything that's true. So not representing the actual facts in a situation, I don't think is that big of a deal. I think that if the person has power to say no to what they don't want to do or say yes to the things that they do want to do, then that is a positive-ish thing. But I don't know that necessarily everybody's put in that same situation. I mean, when you're going to somebody's house privately, an out call, right?
Right.
There's a little bit less security, I think, than for that person, that sex worker, than there is for an in call where you're working in a room with other
and there's other
sex workers
people around,
yeah.
right?
I have some Wikipedia statistics.
Oh, Wikipedia. Now
Well,
there's a great source.
I feel like Wikipedia is getting better.
Really?
There are,
I always ignore it when I go. I'm online.
There are
Oh,
links. There are
Wikipedia,
links.
scroll by.
Okay. Women working in prostitution experience higher levels of violence than in other fields. In 2004, the homicide rate for female sex workers in the U.S. was estimated to be 204 per 100,000, although that's legal and illegal work. And it's considerably higher than the next riskiest occupation in the U.S.
Which is taxi cab
4
driver.
per 100,000 for female liquor store workers and 29 per 100,000 for male taxi cab drivers.
Wow.
So the number is kind of high. Now, here's one, a study in Vancouver, BC. Over the age of 14 who used illicit drugs other than marijuana said that 57% of prostitutes experienced some form of gender-based violence over an 18-month period. So the number sounds like it's a little higher than he.
But of course,
He
he's
said.
going to paint it that way because he wants everybody to think sex work is just absolutely fantabulous and it needs to be legalized because he enjoys it. So
In Cambodia, it was 93% of women surveyed had been the victim of rape in the past year.
And I'm guessing this is cis women too, because
Well, that was cis and transgender for that one
Oh, okay.
in Cambodia.
Oh, in Cambodia.
Yeah.
But not in the United States.
Probably.
Probably. I just know that trans folks tend to.
It's a higher.
Get,
way higher,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
it's a higher. And you wonder if how many of the Johns know that going in that it's a trans woman. If they're going in with that, I mean, are they going in there just for the violence? I mean,
I don't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't hazard to guess on that one.
yeah. But so I think those numbers show that he was probably way off on. I thought, didn't he say something like 2%? He thought. I thought the number was really low.
It was low.
But, yeah.
I mean,
But those are maybe Canadian statistics, and those are.
But I just gave one that was
in
57%.
2011 is the key there.
I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that they're changed that much.
Yeah.
In this amount of time, in like 20 years or whatever.
Well, actually, in the past 2 years, it's probably gone up. Past 3 years under our current administration, I wouldn't doubt if those numbers.
Well, I would imagine that there's fluctuations, but again,
Yeah.
we're talking about Canada, and
Yeah.
Canada is not in the United States.
It's not.
So Trump
I thought it was part of it.
would be less
Yeah.
effective, I would think.
You think Trump bought it?
Hopefully, but he's tried.
Greenland.
He tried, but they turned him down. But yeah, I mean, there's I don't know what else, Parker.
I don't. I'm trying to find this in here.
Oh, the statistics.
Yeah.
It would be under the
I-
violence.
I can say that the interview that I watched was from 2011. It was a promotion for his book,
Okay.
and I only watched one. The person who was interviewing a woman in Vancouver, like had high praise for the book. It was like groundbreaking for her. So that also speaks a lot to, I think, the time period about.
Was she a sex worker?
No, she was a news anchor.
Oh, okay.
They thought this was interesting and
Yeah.
and fascinating and high quality. I guess almost like I don't know. It spoke a lot to the time. I think that nobody would kind of pick apart in general, yes. Sometimes somebody talking about using sex workers in a time when that wasn't really talked about. That is kind of it is kind of groundbreaking. People just don't talk about that in our society. But, at that, they didn't pull apart all the nuances and the way and the facts. The first time I rolled my eyes and was like, oh my God, this book's going to be awful, was when he said he asked for like the statistics of the sex worker, and it was like she was 5'3" and 130 pounds. And he said, oh, that's a little heavy for somebody who's 5'3". And I was like,
Fuck
Lord,
you.
good Lord.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Again, if you're paying for it, you want a certain thing. And that's what he's looking for. He was looking for the little tiny skinny one with the big boobs.
Who was 18.
Who was 18.
But the boobs can't be fake either.
Well, you can't have,
No, I think he said that he preferred small breasts. Did he not?
That's what he said. Yeah.
Did he?
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know.
But so
You're thinking of your own.
that's my preference. But what else?
I mean, I
There
guess
was something.
what if you were? I guess you're paying for the experience. So if you think of we're talking about sex work is an experience, right? It's not it's not an object. It's
Right.
like traveling to Fiji or something, right?
Mhm.
It's a whole experience. But you are going to ask about the hotel room. You want the hotel room to be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not a perfect.
Does it come with champagne?
Yeah. So, the whole experience for a sexual episode is a person and what they look like. And you don't have just sex with anybody, right? So I understand that part of it, but it was just a little, I would never do that. I guess I would never pay for sex. But I guess that would be part of the experience. You would want to know the person you're having sex with.
Well,
But I think it is a little judgmental to think that being 130 pounds at 5'3" was like a deal breaker.
yeah.
Mhm.
But like you're saying, like Lyft or Uber, they both get to rate each other. You get to rate the passenger, and the passenger gets to rate the driver.
Mhm.
And
That
they
was
say,
definitely
well,
taken out of the Toronto classifier or whatever the website was. Like the sex workers were not rating the Johns.
right.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, I'd like to see that website.
Well, yeah, but some of the sex workers would only go to New Johns that knew other sex workers and had references, basically. So that way.
but that wasn't for the public to see. That wasn't for everybody to see that.
Right.
Hey, sex workers, don't go with this guy because he has a hairy mole on his eyebrow.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
But they're getting paid for it. It wasn't like.
The Uber driver's getting paid.
You can't.
Yes, but if you got in somebody's car, which is their personal car, and you smelled like dog shit, and when you left, it still smelled like dog shit.
It's like the Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly. And now
but if
you've
you
ruined
came
their
into-
car.
The
If
B
you can-
stays with the O.
If you stay,
The O stays with the B.
if you stay in a person's bed and you smell like dog shit, and then you leave and the dog shit smells like your bed now smells like dog shit, then they have something to say about that John.
Exactly. Airbnb, same thing. I mean,
These are
It's-
all things that are new.
they are.
To 2011.
They are.
So this is not a concept that was probably around at that time.
No,
so,
you are correct.
I think.
But I could see using a site like that. If you're spending $180 or $200 for 30 minutes of pleasure, you want to know what you're getting, and is it going to be worth my $200? I don't know.
I don't feel like I understand what you're saying. I don't think that that's the way that these women are being portrayed on the website. That's the problem.
You're probably right.
That's my problem with it. And
Because it sounds like some of the guys gave like detailed, like, well, we got together and she took off her top and she banged her titties around a little bit and then she did a twirl and then she got on her knees. You know, I think that's what it was. I'm just saying. I'm thinking that's what it was.
have
Like,
you
it was
been on that website?
twice? But
Research.
But it sounded like, based on what he was saying, that some of them went into great detail about, you know, what took place, so other people could read it and jerk off to it at the same time. But then,
I'm sure.
but you know, and then they knew, you know, what exactly that person did. So if they did the bareback blowjob, then that's what they wanted. But you're right. Maybe when she saw the John, she's like, "Ooh, there's no fucking way I'm doing that with him."
I wonder if sex workers have thought about having their own. I mean, I'm guessing that they talk to each other and stuff, but that would be very more localized than this internet website.
Allows you to be wherever you want and look at it.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Is it that so? What website's still around?
Never looked it up.
Oh,
well, here we go. Let's get it.
Look it up. Turb.ca.
Oh,
sorry, I know it.
Yeah, I'm sorry too.
Because maybe then now there's because I think that the co-reviewing thing that they do in Lyft is a newish thing. Maybe they now have it on their on their website. But you know, whoever's making the anonymous review, I think just partially because it is not legal.
There is turb.ca. Yep, Toronto and Ontario escort reviews. It is still there.
Is there a component?
Escort and massage reviews, sugar babies, local hookups, enter forum, discreet effect. Oh, those are probably ads, but
yeah, and then all the ads there.
Enter forum, and that's probably what it is. It's probably like a Reddit, and you just go down it.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, exactly. Just looks like a Reddit or something.
Okay.
And you just go in and wow.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we could search. Let's search and see if we can find
independent escorts. 131 viewing right now.
Wow.
But yeah, so sex worker resource and help center, independent escorts, and then they have it broke down by areas like downtown Toronto and stuff. Independent escorts. Let's see. Oh wow, there's a lot.
So, have you guys? I mean, in general, I feel like the book itself was an interesting read to see somebody's perspective. I felt like it was very problematic in general, and I didn't really like the appendices.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I skimmed through it because I was reading a comic book. I didn't want to read a book. If I wanted to read a book about sex work or John, I'd read a book. But I wanted to read the comic. So it got a little boring, honestly. So what I'm looking at is the ads by the sex workers. Bobo here, your new passionate fun.
I don't want you to do this. I have no interest in you reading this. I mean, I did a search and went through 2 pages and didn't find what I was looking for, so I gave up on it. But I think that would balance things out a little bit. And like I mean, obviously, sex workers are using the site.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they weren't.
Maybe not. Then. Maybe not. Obviously, maybe it's not. Obviously, maybe this is pimps. Maybe they're people who are, sex trafficking and stuff. I don't know. That are putting the ads on there.
Did you guys think that a couple of those girls may have been borderline 18 or possibly, sex trafficked?
I would assume yes that there were.
Yeah, I feel like
sex trafficking happening. I don't think that a lot of people. I mean, I think that some of them obviously had chosen to be sex workers based off of the what they had said. You know, that was something that they had chosen to do. That one woman was ashamed, kind of doing it, but like the money, or I can't exactly recall, but according to him at least. But I do think the people who were hesitant about saying that they were 18 or, those people were probably not old enough. I don't think that at 18 you have the full faculties to be able to choose to do that and think about all the consequences of sex work. I mean, maybe there's no consequences whatsoever, but it is dangerous. And I don't think at 18 you think about how dangerous it is. And you're definitely not thinking about it at 17 and 16 and anybody who's younger than that. And I think probably not until you're probably like 25 or something like that. You have that little experience in your life and that you can really make a really smart decision about doing that.
In general terms.
Yeah.
Well, I think that in the appendix again, he does mention that that sex workers don't. Well, this is from his opinion, but he doesn't think that it should be regulated. But if there is something like that on the back of someone's mind, I think that with government involvement, maybe it would be not just regulated in the context of like healthcare, because that's what one of his friends brought that up, but regulated in the context of how old those people should be getting into that business. But then his counter argument is that it opens up more people to get into the black market because they don't want to, probably for these reasons. I don't know.
Well, I mean, marijuana is legal in 17 states, but yet there's still a huge black market. California, they still have this whole area that still grows marijuana illegally. So I mean, there's always going to be black markets for almost anything illicit, I guess. But I don't know. Anything else? Anything else you guys want to add to this?
Oh, I can't think of anything else to add. I mean, I won't read anything else by him.
I don't.
I mean, if I had read something
I don't want
different,
to either.
If I had read something other that he wrote, but I definitely has turned me off to anything that he writes because I just know that I don't have the same values as he does, I guess.
No, I get it, and I liked his stuff. There's another one downstairs, one of his books, I Never Liked You, and I'm gonna have to go back and see, seeing what his true beliefs are. If it's the same stuff is in that.
What do you mean his true beliefs? You don't think that?
No, I think this is who he is.
Yeah. So you don't think the other one's like that?
I don't know, because they're different. They're about him. If you're doing a memoir, no matter what, it's always going to be.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be any different. You're going to find the same thing. Maybe he's just not talking about sex work.
No, he's not. But anyhow,
is he objectifying women?
Yeah, that's
probably.
That's what I'm wondering.
But you didn't pay attention to that when you read it the first time.
I read it 20 years ago, so I don't know.
No,
I don't remember if I read it.
No, he did not.
No, I never did. Well, 20 years ago was a lot.
20 years ago, I was objectifying women all the time.
I always did. I objectified everyone. So
I'm so glad that you're proud of it.
Well, I was raised.
He's proud of the way how he's changed.
I have changed a lot. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that now. Well, I might, but
but you'd at least recognize that that's what you're doing.
I would recognize
it's a step in the right direction.
Recognize if I did it, and I would understand. But no, it was it was different. We talked about it in the last episode.
Yeah.
Raised in a different era, different time, different people. Different area is what I meant. But anyhow, anything else, Parker? I was raised in a different era. But like you were saying, even 2011, I mean, a 10-year-old in 2011 is now an adult. They're 18,
What?
No, you were saying, I mean, it's different than from 2011. A 10-year-old then that was, is now an adult. There's a whole generation of change that's come along,
Oh,
so I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed in the past 7-8 years since that book has come out. So.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, the amount of social change in the last 10 years has been huge compared to in the past.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Well, I don't know about that, but it has changed quite a bit.
It's changed a lot, and I mean, we've gone back a few steps, but I think it'll right itself again. Keep moving forward.
Oh, we'll fucking write it.
All right. Well,
thank you guys for coming on today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Speak.
And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Parker.
And we'll talk to you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.